Tuscolana e
But
Appia.
one city
After
continues to define the
Prenestina,
world.
Casilina, after 4 main national routes.
E ci si può immaginare appunto quanto può essere il verde pro capite.
So you can imagine how
the
much
green area inside the city are very important to reduce temperature, to reduce pollutions.
To Roman side, we see the absence of a public hand, and we see how and the need of citizens to claim their rights.
Which are coming through experiences and they are put on the extremes.
So there's private development or there's capitalistic development and
Rising housing costs, or can there be
Today, and this issue of how much value. Okay, we are about to start. The assembly follows a very interesting morning where we had presenting the concerns, the practices and the activities of one of the cases introduced in Rome in dialogue with some guests that now I will introduce you. We, as I said already in the presentation in the pavilion, we have also the Assessor of Urban Planning of the City of Rome, Maurizio Veloccia, and we're very pleased of that because what this space sits for, it's confrontation of planners, practitioners and social realities facing the urgencies of the dramatic crisis, housing and living, I would say in general, it's in today. So there's a few rules. One rule is that we give the guest a 3-minute statement, 4 minutes. Let's make it 5 maximum. As a starting point, and then the discussion will be open, and everybody, of course, is invited to participate. If there is language speaking problem, of course, the whole discussion will be in English. If someone needs help for any reason, would like to express some ideas or feelings, and could not in English, it'd be help in translation, at least for Italian, German, and Spanish, French, not further than that for the moment. So I would give the mic to Philipp Ursprung, professor at ETH Zurich University for theory of architecture and art, and that knows also very well the Lago Bulicante. That will be also the concern of the confrontation of the mayor. And to start, to open the floor, and please.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and pleasure to be here and part of this discussion. I'm a theoretician, so I'm not a planner. I'm looking from the history and theory side. And I have been twice to Lago Bulicante. Once I could give a lecture invited by you, and then I came back with our students 2 years ago. And the place has a very strong presence in my memory. It has a magnetic force. It's a place which you really remember, and where my students also want to go back. And in my view, from the perspective of theory, this is a model for a new kind of producing a public space. It's a space which is partially formed by humans, with the ruin of the factory, with the ruin of the shopping center. And then it is not filled by other humans, but it is filled by nature, making this lake. And now it's the community that takes care of this area and keeps it in this fragile balance as a very beautiful, and I find also very safe area. I feel very safe and very welcome to be there. So I see it as a model which we can also use in other cities, in other places in Europe or in the world, of a production, a co-production of public space which is accessible and usable for all. And for that, I feel it needs to be protected, and we need to see it as a whole, the Lago, the old shopping center, the old factory, and this entire terrain as one big possibility, potential public space. So I look forward to the discussion and hopefully also to the results that come out of it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. I would now give the voice to Lena Strerowitz, sitting right up from me. She's an architect and urban planner acting in Vienna, building, in my opinion, one of the best housing projects in Vienna, but they're doing that, I think, Europe-wide. And she made, I think, a very interesting PhD with the name Gras, Staub, nichts, noch etwas. Yes, so, somehow about the topic from today, and she's also involved, she's one of the planners of the projects that we show also in the exhibition. So please, Lina.
Yes, our project has the name Freie Mitte. So
yes,
and it's perhaps like a distant cousin of Lago Policante, like. Very distant, but still similar in the way that it was a former railway area that was never really sealed off, and it just fell into disuse. The plants took over and started to grow freely, but also people started to use this area. And when we participated in the competition in 2012, we found it quite problematic to do what was asked for, namely to put in this place 500,000 square meters of floor area, which would more or less cover the whole area. And we tried to find a way not to do that by pushing all the buildings to the border, creating quite a problematic density in a way. But problems are sometimes good, no, because something else comes out of them, as if you just sort of disperse everything and do it as usual. And amazingly, we won the competition, and I think one of the important things to know is that this was an accident. It was like someone was ill in the jury. A very important jury member was ill, and it was politically. I mean, we still don't know until today if it was intentional or not, because politics had also changed at the moment. So there was a new urban planning department at the time, and this idea of a reset, we can do things differently. But we also had very pragmatic arguments to do that. One was that this place is already there. It has a wonderful atmosphere, a lot of charisma. It's like a Central Park type landscape with a lot of topography that would be extremely expensive to construct from scratch. So to take that as a resource and to really work with that. And on the other hand, that we would save 85% of street infrastructure by our proposal. So by just moving all the buildings towards the fringe, you would need much less money from the side of the city government. And with those arguments, I think we managed to convince the jury that was feasible. And then quite a complicated process of implementation started with a lot of resistance. And I think it's perhaps now a success. We can discuss that. You would have to go there, and then we can discuss if it's a success in maintaining this atmosphere and this charisma, because there's a lot of rules and constraints that we had to fulfill, but still there's a lot of this original magic maintained in the place. But it was not easy, and it's not something that is repeated. Like it hasn't. It was a little bit a one-off and a one-hit wonder, and I think that shows also that the processes of urban planning, they're still not really prepared for those ambiguities that we discussed in the morning. Not have a clear outcome, to not know what this will look like, because we don't have images in our minds what this mix of park and natural protection area and wilderness and new things and people using it but not really knowing how, because it's not a football field. So all these things that we don't know, they're sometimes very difficult still, and I think that's what we have to learn, to not know how things will end up. And we never made a rendering or any image, we really resisted that in the competition, and I think that is quite important to say. We don't know the outcome of these things. So you don't know what Lago Policante will be like. You have to embrace the adventure, I think.
Thank you so much, Tina. Thank you so much, because also Lina was recalling the discussion in the morning. I mean, and also it's a contribution from Vienna, where at which extent planning has been giving room to, we call it ambiguity, no? to the possibility of emerging intelligence inside the city. So thank you very much. Now we proceed by the statements from the voices of the Lago Pulicante. Then we will have Sarah Gainsforth, that she is very concerned about the problematics, the complex problematics that relates in the city, the question of environment, land abuse, and new form of tourism and speculation. So this will be her. Before giving the floor to the assessors, I would say from the municipality, Scalia, the 5th municipality, and the assessor of the city of Rome, Veloce. So please, Michele.
Thank you. From resilience to better living. No problem. Don't worry.
No. I'm sorry, because Michele, besides being one of the activists in the whole scenario of the defense of the lake, Michele Colucci, it's an historian, and from CNR, which is the Research Italian National Institute, and this was at least the minimum to say.
My title is From Resilience to Better Living. I will briefly discuss the contribution that historical sciences have made to understanding the ECSnia area. We are talking about a factory founded in 1920s that shaped the entire history of the eastern part of the city of Rome. After the factory was built, roads, transport, housing, and infrastructure were created for the urbanization of the area. For this reason, there is a very important link between the factory and the expectation of the city. If we want to understand the historical development of the place and its current social, natural, and political characteristics, we must consider 3 keywords: participation, toxicness, and compensation. The history of the factory is the history of a hard workplace, where thousands and thousands of people, often immigrants and women, experienced the harshest phase of capitalism. The factory produced the textile material, and the work destroyed the health of most of the workers. But in these hard conditions, there were a lot of forms of resistance, which then exploded during the Second World War and in the social struggles of the post-war period. After the factory was abandoned in the 50s, there was a long period of isolation from the city. Meanwhile, the city grew, and the eastern of Rome area became one of the most contaminated areas, not only in Rome, but in Europe. Cement, smog, and a lack of public services created a new toxic environment. Today, we have reached a point of no return. In this morning, we discussed this focus. For those born in the area, life expectancy at the birth is 1 year lower than for those born in the center of Rome. Today, with this long and important history, we must understand that the community is demanding compensation for everything it has been forced to endure over the last 100 years. If we want to include the issue of compensation in the history of contemporary Rome, we must associate compensation with the public sphere, with the return of the state and institutions as protagonists of change, and not as mere passive spectators. In Rome, all the moments of transitions, even the dramatic ones, when the response to problems came from public solutions, steps forward were taken that changed history. In response to the housing emergency, social housing policy was created. In response to the health and hygienic emergency, essential public services such water or sewerage systems were promoted. In response to illiteracy, public education was strengthened. Today, only a public intervention that completely eliminates private speculation in the SNIA will it be possible to obtain what citizens want. A place where history and nature can interact. An open place where people can walk and contemplate the city's industrial past. In Rome's historic parks, this coexistence between history and nature already exists. Just think of the Appia Antica, where you can walk among meadows and sheep and pass by Roman monuments of the past. In line with the latest trends in industrial archaeology, this experience will also be possible at the SNIA, which will also include public services useful to citizens. Visiting the Biennale in these days, I read many references to two issues that are very popular today: the praise of flexible ecosystems and the praise of community resilience. In Rome today, the opposite is needed. Ecosystems need deep, inflexible roots in order to survive, and communities are tired of being resilient. They expect to be able to live well, to build a better living, but if necessary, they will continue to resist.
Okay, we now try to get the content, the ecological content of this kind of miracle emerging in the middle of the city through the waters, through the lake. So we give voice to Michele de Sanctis from University della Sapienza, biologist.
Please help me with the translation because my English is very bad, I'm sorry.
It's good.
It's good, I can try.
Please try. Then we can speak.
This morning you asked me the same thing. I try. Your responsibility.
We learned in the meantime.
I would like to share with you the urgence, the health state of these ecosystems. As Michele told you before, it is very important to protect these exceptional ecosystems. We all know and we are all fascinating about the fast development of these very complex ecosystems along the lake in so short time, and the exceptionality of these ecosystems. They are very complex, so we always speak about their flexibility and resilience, but the area is also too small and too very small and very isolated. So there is a high risk of extinction of plant species, of animal species, and the collapse of this ecosystem if we don't protect them appropriately. We think the best way to do this, but it's not only our thinking, also ISPRA report. ISPRA is the technical agency of the environmental ministry in Italy that studies our lake, tells us that we need a buffer area to protect these ecosystems. And the best way to produce a buffer is a very dense forest. So what we dream in the area
area of the fabric, the private sector of the fabric, where there are no build in the, I don't remember exactly the hectares, but the area 4 hectares, the area without buildings. We want to have an afforestation with autochthon species, following a method that is spreading a lot over the world. Is invented by Miyawaki, a Japanese botanist, and we are already experimenting this method near the area of the lake in the Centro Sociale. Social center, okay, thank you. And with the collaboration of the Botanical Garden of Rome, in order to be ready to do the same in the right way in the fabric. And this is not only our dream, our thinking, the thinking of ISPRA, but it also due following international directive about nature conservation, because we found in the lake very important ecosystems that are protected by the Habitat Directive. And now we have also another important international directive, that is the restoration law, that as you know, there is a paragraph inside specific about the green area inside the city, because now we all know that the green area inside the city are very important to reduce temperature, to reduce pollutions, per la salute, for the health of the citizens that lives around this area. So it is very important. Another very important point about the conservation of these ecosystems are the ecological network of Rome. The lake is located between two large parks, Appia Antica and Valle dell'Aniene, but in the middle of these two large parks there are just buildings and human infrastructure, no green space except small and very precious land blocks of nature very wild, like the nature around the lake, and also the very interesting nature, the so-called novel ecosystems that developed in this area. So this area is also important as a stepping stones for a lot of species linked to the humid areas and the wilderness area. And okay, this was my contribute by I hope my English is okay.
You work. One more voice from the Lago Baccante, from the Forum Territoriale Parco delle Energie. It's urban planner Alessandra Valentinelli. You also try in English?
Just per farti lavorare un po'. Io volevo insistere sulla questione della temperatura, sul valore della temperatura.
I would like to insist on the question of temperature, so the value of temperature.
Quest'estate Roma ha avuto un'estate molto calda.
This summer was very hot summer in Rome.
E sui 35-38 gradi.
35-38 degrees.
E c'è stata una survey anche non scientifica, ma insomma ha raccolto dei dati. Nelle piazze, quelle pavimentate, si arrivava anche a 50 gradi al suolo.
So a survey traced a map in which in paved spaces and squares the temperature reached almost 50 degrees.
Mentre il lago, un po' perché c'è il verde, un po' perché c'è l'acqua, i gradi erano più o meno 8 inferiori alla media della città, quindi eravamo sui 30.
While usually in the lake there is at least 8 degrees below the average of the city.
Allora, il valore della temperatura si traduce in una diminuzione della mortalità delle persone fragili rispetto a queste temperature.
We can translate the value of temperature in a diminution, in a decreasing of death of fragile person.
Gli studi internazionali ci dicono che questo sarà uno dei problemi principali delle città non fra tanti anni, nei prossimi 10 anni.
International researchers tell us that this is going to be one of the major concerns for big cities in the next 10 years.
E infatti una delle scommesse della Nature Restoration Law è quella di cominciare a tutelare le aree verdi esistenti nella città.
This is why one of the bets of the natural restoration law is to
Affermazioni principali.
To preserve
le aree verdi
the green areas of the city, sorry.
Perché poi dovranno essere ampliate. Allora il valore della temperatura, se si può usare questa immagine, è proprio il valore sociale di queste aree.
So, because these areas also need to be incremented, this is also part of the law, and this is why the value of temperature. This is then when the value of temperature become a social value.
E però questo valore non è un valore di mercato.
And this is not a market value.
Ed è proprio il motivo per il quale è il pubblico che se ne deve fare carico.
This is the reason why it's up to public to take care of it.
È un investimento tra i principali per il futuro della città.
It's one of the most important investment for the future of the city.
Basta.
That's it. Okay, and I don't know if there is Marco that would also take the word. Sì, Marco Corirossi, one of the hearts of the struggle.
Sì, buongiorno, sono Marco del Centro Sociale eXSnia.
Good morning, I'm Marco from the Social Center eXSnia.
Sarò molto breve perché insomma questo incontro così importante in questa sede ci può dare l'occasione di parlare con la parte istituzionale del governo di Roma.
So I will be brief, but we this one very important meeting here in this very important place could give us the chance to a discussion, a negotiation with the institutional part of the city.
Insieme a diversi esponenti comunque di chi pianifica l'urbanistica di un'altra capitale europea come Vienna, che qui sono diciamo così a confronto.
In front of other experts of another capital, Vienna, and their expertise that could be helpful for us.
Per comprendere anche come queste due idee che si sono sviluppate nel tempo, questi due modi di concepire l'abitare, possano interagire per le soluzioni che l'umanità deve saper dare per affrontare la crisi climatica che stiamo già vivendo.
Yeah, it's the place there where these two kind of different expertise can confront and produce answers to the ultimate crisis we're living in.
Io pongo dentro insomma questa discussione quello che è il nostro obiettivo da sempre, quello di completare così il recupero dell'intera fabbrica dell'eXSnia, cominciato nei primi anni 90.
So what I want to bring in the discussion, it's what we are concerned mostly, which is the recuperation of the old factory of eXSnia Viscosa that started in the 90s.
Concepito e determinato dagli abitanti di quello che è tra i quartieri più popolosi di Roma.
A plan conceived and produced by the inhabitants of one of the most dense neighborhoods in the city of Rome.
come una sorta di riscatto per raggiungere quello che sono insomma i livelli di qualità della vita che in qualche modo sono necessari.
Riscatto a sort of, it's not just compensation, but it's a paying back to the inhabitants. Risarcimento. Sì, paying back to the inhabitants of this neighborhood.
Perché quel luogo è stato un luogo di produzione capitalistica intensiva.
Because that site was an intensive site of capitalistic production.
Per garantire enormi profitti negli anni 20 e della seconda guerra mondiale.
To grant immense profits from the 20s to the Second World War.
Ha prodotto tanta nocività e soprattutto nella dinamica dello sfruttamento tante malattie e morti sul lavoro.
It produced a lot of pollution, and in particular for the workers where it produced a lot of disease and health criticalities.
A morire e ad ammalarsi sono stati centinaia di operai, soprattutto giovani, e che sono rimasti comunque per lo più a vivere poi precariamente quel pezzo di città che si sviluppava e si è sviluppata fuori Porta Maggiore.
Who got sick or died were hundreds of mostly young people that precarious had been living in that neighborhood that developed along with the factory around there.
Dalla chiusura della fabbrica avvenuta negli anni 50, appunto la città si è sviluppata e dalle baracche dove vivevano gli stessi operai, quindi doppia condizione di subalternità, quella all'interno del lavoro e quella del vivere in situazioni malsane.
So the workers were actually inhabiting the shacks that were surrounding the factory in this double subalternity at work and in housing.
Non c'è stata capacità di pianificazione urbanistica.
Until now there's been no capacity of urban planning.
Che garantisse gli spazi pubblici.
Capable to grant public spaces.
E dove questi spazi pubblici comprendessero il verde necessario alla qualità della vita.
And public spaces that would include the green that's needed for the quality of life in the neighborhood.
Da Piazza Vittorio, che è un giardino all'italiana, il primo parco che si può incontrare, anche quello determinato dalle lotte degli abitanti, insomma, in quegli anni è il parco di Villa Gordiani.
If you move from the downtown Piazza Vittorio, the last garden downtown towards east, the next park you find it's Villa Gordiana, which is miles away.
Andando in maniera trasversale dalla Prenestina, il primo parco degno di essere chiamato come tale è quello della Caffarella.
If you cross the mention, and then the first park you can see towards south, it's the Caffarella Park.
Passando Prenestina, Casilina, Tuscolana e Appia.
After Prenestina, Casilina, after 4 main national roads.
E ci si può immaginare appunto quanto può essere il verde pro capite.
So you can imagine how much green we have in our area.
Ed è proprio per questo che ho usato riscatto, no?
And this is why we need a payback.
Ecco, noi da 30 anni concepiamo quel luogo come una riappropriazione di una parte della qualità della vita, anzi quantificandolo in un anno, l'abbiamo detto questa mattina, dell'anno che gli studi scientifici rilevano che ne siamo sottratti. Insomma, chi nasce in quel quartiere vive un anno in meno rispetto alla media cittadina.
So going back to the issue that who lives in the neighborhood lives 1 year less than other inhabitants in the city, we want to be being paid back for that. It's 30 years we struggle to be paid back for that.
E quindi chiudendo, noi ci immaginiamo appunto il completamento della ripubblicizzazione di quel luogo proprio per ottenere questo, quindi un futuro ecologico dell'eXSnia tutta, e come
So this is why we imagine a full publicity of the old site. Everything has to turn public.
E come, diciamo, come strumento insomma, da parte del comune, noi sappiamo, insomma, che lo Stato italiano ha quello dell'esproprio per pubblica utilità, e per noi è la pubblica utilità quella di andare incontro ai bisogni reali degli abitanti e quello di garantire la salute pubblica.
The Italian urban law as a tool that could grant the public health and do this paying back. This tool is called expropriation.
E la destinazione d'uso la detta la qualità dell'eccellenza del lago insorto, del lago Bullicante, del suo ecosistema e quello dei bisogni di chi abita quel pezzo di città.
And then all the uses of the place, they have to follow the excellence of this ecosystem, the waters and the nature developed in these years in the area.
E siamo qui per capire insieme come ottenere questo grande risultato per la città di Roma.
And here we are to understand all together with the public administration how to grant this fantastic result to the city of Rome. Thank you. Allora, prima di passare al lato istituzionale, before moving towards the institutional side of the dialogue, I would give a word to Sarah Gainsforth, that's a researching journalist on those issues, which provide also the complex ties that relates nature, patrimony, and speculation, and housing nowadays.
Thank you very much. I'll just try to pick up what we were talking about this morning. Actually, I thought it was funny, we were trying to find a word to translate riscatto, which in English is ransom, which is not what we were looking for, because we were looking for a word like compensation. But then actually I thought maybe ransom is actually quite a good word to talk about the fact that in Rome we seem to be hostage to private development rights, basically. And so this is an issue that came up this morning. I mean, I've been writing down a few words, and one of the words that was pronounced is balance. So how can we find, I mean, I'm going to be very, very basic, because I think this is the right kind of setting to talk about basic concepts. So how can we find a fragile balance between private profit-seeking real estate speculation that's written on the wall in there and better living? This is what we're talking about. So what is the role of public planning? What is the role of public policies in looking for this balance? Is there an intentionality, or are we just kind of giving into private planning? So we're compensating building rights at this moment, but I think we also do need to talk about the compensation of the negative effects that these produce in the city. I'm just going to briefly just talk about the housing situation, because of this private-seeking real estate speculation, Italian cities are not livable anymore, basically. I mean, single income families cannot live in any Italian city now, at least in the center. Double income families kind of have a slightly more have a greater chance of living in the center of cities. And I want to also point out that single income families account now for 33% of Italian families. So I mean, this is quite a big problem. This is, the result of what we call the rent differential generated by temporary living, so by tourism and by student housing basically. And we have not been regulating this kind of market-led offer of accommodation. So this is one of the main reasons in Italy we haven't regulated short-term tourist rentals. And what we've seen, I talked about this a little bit this morning, is the evolution of this model into medium-term rentals now. So it's not just tourism rentals, it's also months. But anyway, we're just talking about temporary inhabitants. And the role of basically deregulation, urban planning deregulation in facilitating the creation of this private profit-oriented model, and in facilitating the financial real estate players. And so this is what we were also talking about yesterday presenting my book, these really, really high rents that students are paying. They do actually impact the rest of the housing market. It's not just limited to that kind of real estate development or that neighborhood, but then it impacts the whole city. And so what can we do? What can housing policies do? And we've, in the rest of Europe, cities and countries are regulating these new kind of housing developments, and we're not doing much to do that in Italy. So I just want to conclude just asking exactly how can we make sure that all this private investment actually benefits citizens, cities and citizens. The mayor of Rome went to the MIPIM, which is the main real estate fair in Cannes, and I think it was the first point, which was the first point in a list of points to convince private investors to invest in Rome is rising housing costs. So, I mean, that seems like quite a clear political indication. So I wonder, is urban planning in Rome going in the direction of rising housing costs, or can there be planning tools to redistribute, have some kind of redistribution of this value? And what are the means in which we can, as everybody else pointed out, talk about compensation if this is so difficult to control? So how can we try to create a balance and try to imagine a balance where cities become livable again, ecologically, and talking about the housing markets? Thank you.
Sarah, I think it's the time to also listen the vice deputy or assessor, as we call it, because it's more clear the role of the city of Rome. Maurizio Velocia will give first voice, and then also if the municipality will take the voice. Maybe we listen to the assessor, and then we give you also the reply on the issue.
La traduzione adesso perché volevo parlare un po' più in maniera più tecnica, così ci più tranquillo anche per parlare.
Ok.
Allora, intanto diciamo su quest'area sia i movimenti sia da parte del municipio, quindi il governo locale, si è sempre posto attorno a 3 obiettivi su quest'area, quindi la parte ambientale, la parte universitarie e la parte dei servizi per il territorio. Erano queste 3 collocazioni, a volte una era prioritaria, a volte erano le altre.
So both the local institution and the movements have always had a priority on this territory. Public services, university and green.
chiaramente in questa fase mi pare che diciamo, tutto converge verso una prevalenza della parte ambientale, quindi anche con la scelta che è stata fatta recentemente, quindi anche un impegno dell'assessore a una estensione quindi della forestazione sull'area che prima era destinata ad essere edificata, quindi questo è un fatto positivo che è stato riconosciuto.
In the latest year everybody moved towards the priority to vegetation and greens, and to this is the direction also given as an instructive of the process by implementing reforestation.
Diciamo, questo è stato anche un po' riconosciuto, poi mi pare anche dal comunicato dei movimenti, quindi diciamo c'è un passo avanti che dobbiamo però portare a conclusione, perché ancora diciamo, il cammino è abbastanza impervio ancora in questa fase.
So this change of attitude has also been recognized by movements, and this is so it's an important step forward, and now we have to lead this process to a final destination.
Quindi abbiamo superato la fase in cui il costruttore aveva un'interlocuzione diretta con l'università, e quindi questa fase, grazie anche al rapporto che c'è stato con i movimenti universitari e con le facoltà, è stata respinta la proposta che veniva fatta direttamente dal costruttore dell'università ed è tornata in campo una nuova proposta.
Okay, we bypassed the step then when the solution was looked forward by the investor himself, by the private owner, towards the university. This has been rejected, now we are at the next step.
La Giunta aveva dato mandato l'anno scorso, quindi un anno fa circa, all'assessore di verificare queste ipotesi. Da un lato fare una valutazione economica diciamo certificata sul valore dell'area per le procedure eventuali di esproprio, e dall'altro verificare delle possibilità di realizzare le opere insieme all'università e insieme diciamo, a un rapporto pubblico-privato. Quindi questo era il mandato che ha avuto dalla Giunta l'assessore.
So the city government gave the mandate to the assessor to explore two different possibilities. One is the direct expropriation of the area, the other it's encountering the interests of public university in the development of the area.
Quindi oggi noi siamo in una fase in cui è uscito il vecchio costruttore, e il terreno è stato acquisito da una SGR, si dice, da una società di gestione di risparmio dell'Enasarco, che diciamo in un rapporto col comune sta verificando quali sono le possibili compensazioni, diciamo, o accordi per poter cedere l'area e comunque per fare delle iniziative insieme all'università.
So now the private owner is out of the game, and the game has been taken over by this fund of public interest in Asarco that is now evaluating the cost in compensation of money that should be paid to the owner.
Quindi diciamo, questa è adesso la fase in cui si è acquisita la necessità, quindi anche da parte del comune, di salvaguardare la parte davanti al lago, quindi con la forestazione. Resta quindi il punto che però è ancora, e su cui sta lavorando penso, in questa fase l'assessore, che poi ci dirà esattamente qual è il momento, la situazione, che siccome Enasarco non è Santa Claus, come si dice, non è Babbo Natale, chiaramente c'è una trattativa che è abbastanza complessa e su cui però c'è un impegno dell'amministrazione a rispettare una serie di prerogative che sono quelle chieste anche dal, diciamo, sia dal territorio che anche dal...
So we are at the point then when the goals that the public administration wishes to fulfill are negotiated. Are in the discussion with a negotiation with Enasarco, which even if it's a subject of public interest, it's not it's not coming for free in the game. So this is what I believe it's what the assessor is working on, and what he would like, and what he could do, tell us at the moment the situation.
Quindi mi pare che insomma ci sono dei passi avanti e questa è l'occasione per chiudere questa fase, perché diciamo siamo quasi a fine legislatura e l'obiettivo di tutti è quello di arrivare a consolidare questa situazione, perché diciamo è una battaglia che è andata avanti per tanti anni e su cui sia come municipio ma anche come diciamo assessorato ci siamo un po' spesi per chiudere in questa maniera, però dobbiamo arrivare a una fase conclusiva e su questo mi pare che si stanno verificando le due ipotesi possibili.
So now we're really at the point that this whole process has to be close, to end, to reach a goal. In the moment that legislation it will be soon over, and the process and the struggle has been going on for so long that we cannot miss the chance to reach a result.
Mi pare che quindi a questo punto devo avere la parola all'assessore che ci dirà a che punto è la situazione.
Okay. Grazie mille, la parola all'assessore Maurizio Velotta.
Mr. Romito, I told you that I speak English, but
grazie.
No, that's the first part of my sentence. But I think that it's better if you translate, because I'd like to be clear, and my English is not clear for all. So
I will.
Okay, thanks.
You told me something different, but I will.
I know, but thanks.
I'm only kidding.
Allora, intanto grazie.
First of all, thank you.
Io credo che sia utile, ho accettato insomma questo invito perché penso che sia importante un confronto, anche se talvolta le amministrazioni, o almeno io mi sento un po' come Alcide De Gasperi, ti ricordi nella conferenza di pace a Parigi quando disse tranne la vostra personale cortesia tutto è contro di me.
First of all, I want to thank everybody. I'm here. I welcome the invitation to be here, but sometimes I feel like the Prime Minister Alcide De Gasperi felt after the war by saying thank you all for your kindness, but besides that everything else looks against me.
Prima di parlare della SNIA io vorrei rubare 2 minuti rispetto ai padiglioni che ho visto.
Before talking to you about the case, I would like to dedicate 2 minutes about the pavilion I've been seeing around.
Nel padiglione di Vienna emerge una mano pubblica che ha governato lo sviluppo di una città e che oggi continua a gestire lo sviluppo della città.
In the Vienna Pavilion we can see a public hand that has been through time governing the management of the city and nowadays still does manage the city.
Nel padiglione di Roma appare l'assenza di un governo pubblico e quindi la necessità per i cittadini, per i movimenti sociali di auto-organizzarsi e di provare a reclamare i propri diritti.
In the Roman side we see the absence of a public hand and we see how and the need of citizens to claim their rights.
Io penso che sia una visione parziale ma non errata.
I think it's a partial vision but not a wrong one.
Quindi il primo compito della politica dovrebbe essere quello di tentare di riappropriarsi, diciamo, del bando della matassa, della capacità di governare i processi.
So the first goal of politics nowadays should be to be capable to regain the position to manage the city.
Con però una sottolineatura, to underline one thing, that io non credo quando si dice che la politica può qualsiasi cosa.
But let me underline one thing. I don't believe that politics can do anything.
La politica deve lavorare, la politica deve fare in modo che sia possibile qualsiasi cosa, ma se vogliamo vincere delle battaglie comuni, se riteniamo che siano comuni gli obiettivi, dobbiamo farci carico tutti anche dei constraint, dei vincoli e cercare di capire come superarli.
So if we want to regain this position and make politics able to manage the city, we have to be concerned. Everybody has to, all of us, everybody has to be concerned about the vinculations that we have to get free of.
Per quanto riguarda la SNIA, è chiaro che questa è una battaglia che si poggia su tanti aspetti che sono stati oggi ricordati, aspetti di carattere ecologico, di carattere ambientale. Non nascondiamoci, è stato detto, anche aspetti di carattere simbolico rispetto al passato, allo sfruttamento e alla necessità per la città, per una parte in particolare del quadrante est e anche per la storia della SNIA, di vivere un riscatto.
So claiming a compensation from society has been addressed today very in a complex way, addressing symbolic issue aside of ecological, social patrimony issue, as has been done during the discussion.
E questo io penso che debba essere una cosa di cui l'amministrazione si deve fare carico e rappresentare, e credo che questa amministrazione stia cercando di trovare in una strada molto stretta la possibilità però che questa strada non venga ancora una volta preclusa, ma si provi a percorrerla.
So even by saying, if I see we are trying to practice is a very narrow path to achieve that. The public administration nowadays it's convinced that this should be achieved, and then we don't want to once again find ourselves in a dead end.
A differenza di qualcuno che magari sta anche qui, io non credo che i soggetti privati o gli investitori privati siano il diavolo. Lo diventano se il pubblico non fa la sua parte e non governa i processi.
Maybe I don't know what people think around here, but I don't think private investors are devil. But they could turn devil if public is not capable to manage the process with them.
Non è facile.
It's not easy.
Pensate al tema dell'overtourism.
Think about overtourism.
In cui le amministrazioni locali debbono cercare di trovare dei mezzi per affrontare in obliquo dei problemi che invece potrebbero essere affrontati direttamente con delle norme, ad esempio il tema delle dimensioni delle case, il tema delle abitabilità, delle altezze, invece di poter dire no, io voglio regolare questo fenomeno perché è un fenomeno che se non è regolato fa male alla città.
So the constraints are so many if we think about overtourism, so we have to find and struggle to find pathways aside and crossways. While we should be capable to say no, this is a crucial problem nowadays for our cities.
Per la SNIA il problema è molto chiaro. Noi abbiamo l'esigenza di rispondere a quello che è stato detto qui e quindi di ampliare sicuramente la fruizione pubblica dell'area, lo spazio verde, il verde urbano, difendere le istanze anche per quanto riguarda i temi della biodiversità, le questioni ecologiche che sono state poste, e quindi da questo punto di vista l'ultima proposta che abbiamo tentato di costruire con la proprietà è quella di un bilanciamento da questo punto di vista, con l'estensione di 3 ettari circa delle aree a parco.
So this is, we would like to fulfill the all requirements and arguments that has been presenting here today in this discussion, the whole question, the ecological question, the public space, the enlargement of the park at the moment has been declared. The enlargement of 3 hectares of the park area moves in this direction, and it's clearly an evidence to wanting to follow this.
E cercare per invece gli immobili non collabenti, quelli che esistono e che sono anche in parte vincolati come archeologia industriale, una nuova funzionalizzazione attraverso l'intervento anche dell'Università La Sapienza per destinarli a servizi di interesse generale.
and then this is why we want to limit the development of the area and the non-collapsing building, so the building that they still can be in use and in reuse of the old factory, only to that. And this is why we are searching with the University of Rome a possible encounter in the creation of public services in those buildings.
C'è un punto che è chiaro che oggi questo non è un bene pubblico.
But there's one point that's clear. This nowadays it's not a public patrimony.
È vero che esiste una legge sulla possibilità di esproprio, è quello che stiamo facendo in diverse parti della città, a partire ad esempio dal non troppo lontano, diciamo, Parco di Centocelle, che sta sempre nel medesimo municipio.
I mean, if we consider the same municipality, the fifth municipality, we're trying to take advantage of the tool of expropriation in the Parco of Centocelle. So it's a tool that it's true exists and we can use.
Ma è anche vero che questa amministrazione sta investendo centinaia di milioni nel recupero di aree già pubbliche, da Centocelle a tutto quello che è stato fatto con i piani urbani integrati, Corviale, Torbella Monaca, Porto Fluviale.
So, but it's true that this administration is investing hundreds of millions in recuperating areas that are already public, like Centocelle, like Corviale, like Torbella Monaca.
E quindi l'idea che qualsiasi area oggi non edificata, questa ha ovviamente un'importanza simbolica molto, molto alta, ma ce ne sono tante altre nella città. Faccio un altro esempio: Torre Spaccata, che è una centralità urbana su cui insistono previsioni edificatorie molto imponenti.
So it's evident that this is a very symbolic aspect and exceptionality that has been addressed here, but there is so many other areas. Let me just say one, Torre Spaccata, that has to be taken out from urban planning.
L'idea che tutte queste aree possano essere espropriate e rese pubbliche con una legge sugli espropri, che bisogna ricordare purtroppo anche con sentenze che sono passate in giudicato, oggi prevede che vengono pagati a valore venale le aree, quindi non come un tempo in cui c'era una riduzione dei valori espropriativi, ma sono oggi a valore di mercato, non è realizzabile, non è realistico.
So the idea that all this area can be taken away through the expropriation, that it's a tool that has been also, it's not efficient as it was when it was allowed to pay less than market price. Now the tool of expropriation should pay back the market price. So this, to think that all these areas could be turned public to this tool, it's unrealistic.
Questo per spiegare il perché non noi, ma nessuno fino ad oggi ha fatto una cosa che parrebbe molto molto semplice, cioè fare un esproprio di tutta l'area.
So this is also a reason why, I mean, not only us now, but since now nobody has been using this tool.
E tuttavia quello che abbiamo detto anche, però lo sa il comitato, è che noi non vogliamo e non permetteremo che quest'area venga riconvertita secondo fini, diciamo, prettamente commerciali, privati e privatistici. E quindi è chiaro, questo l'abbiamo sempre detto, che l'esproprio non può essere la strada maestra, ma non è una strada che può essere esclusa.
So, but it's clear that we don't want to give room to private and commercial speculative interests. So we're not using expropriation as the main road, but in case of trouble we can use this tool.
Dopo quindi un lavoro, diciamo, di tanto tempo, oggi siamo in un momento cruciale. Perché? Perché l'ipotesi che è stata fatta proprio per cercare di tenere questo bilanciamento molto, ripeto, precario, una sorta di equilibrio precario tra ovviamente l'interesse pubblico e le prerogative private, è stato quello di dire: intanto lavoriamo su una estensione, appunto prendiamo come punto fisso l'estensione dell'area verde e lavoriamo per servizi universitari, poi ci è stato chiesto anche servizi di quartiere e diciamo servizi di interesse generale.
So it's the question, it's balancing the two interests, the collective public primary interest and the interest of the private owner of the land, and we're trying to find this balance by, as I said, enlarging the green area and provided services to university, and now also to the municipality to provide services for the neighborhood.
A che punto siamo?
What's the situation now?
Noi stiamo completando, e credo che nelle prossime settimane sarà definitivamente completato, il progetto, diciamo, in questo senso che abbiamo immaginato da parte di Roma Capitale, con allegata anche una valutazione, diciamo, aggiornata delle aree e soprattutto di quelle che dovremmo andare a permutare con i privati, quindi parlo dei 3 ettari di verde.
So we are at the point. What's the point now? It's now we are there. We are almost finished with the public municipality has been making a project. The project it's almost ready, and the project includes an evaluation of the compensation should be given to the private for gaining the 3 hectares for the park.
E con l'Università La Sapienza stiamo lavorando per redigere i fabbisogni della Sapienza invece per gli immobili che sono ancora esistenti e che devono essere ristrutturati.
And then with the University of Sapienza we are working to define what's the uses and the needs of Sapienza in the buildings that are there and can be used for public services.
Quello che mi sento di dire è che l'ampliamento del parco, i 3 ettari di verde, sono un obiettivo che per noi è irreversibile, qualsiasi sia la strada che deve essere seguita. È chiaro che per noi la strada maestra è quella appunto di trovare un punto di equilibrio condiviso, però è anche chiaro che noi partiamo da studi che faremo, che saranno certificati e che per noi sono inderogabili.
So what I feel like saying now is that we are not stepping back for the gain position about the 3 hectares for the park and for the public uses inside the building still standing. And all this requires a complex evaluation that it's taking place.
Quindi il prossimo passo per concludere è quello, chiuso questo studio, di confrontare ovviamente queste valutazioni con l'attuale proprietà che al momento è rappresentata dal fondo di Nasarco e capire se diciamo, si possa proseguire insieme su quel progetto che abbiamo illustrato qualche tempo fa anche ai comitati.
So to conclude, the next step is to proceed and evaluate through the researches we are doing cost and possibilities with the actual reference owner of the area, which is this fund, public interest fund, Enasarco.
Un'ultima cosa che non c'entra con la SNIA ma c'entra con il ragionamento che è stato fatto è che io credo che recuperare il bando della matassa in una gestione, una pianificazione pubblica sia essenziale affinché anche le esperienze dall'alto dal basso possano non essere solo esperienze di resistenza, ma possono essere esperienze che possano costituire una base di un nuovo modello di città. Porto Fluviale non è stata cominciata dall'amministrazione.
So I want to really conclude by saying that what we see here, all these bottom-up experiences, besides being experience of resistance, if the city can regain the management, if the city municipality can regain the management of the city, they could turn into proposals, into views of a new model of a city.
Porto Fluviale fortunatamente è un'esperienza di successo, Sul MAM stiamo lavorando per fare in modo che sia un'esperienza di successo. Sul quarticciolo ci siamo contrapposti a chi metteva sullo stesso piano chi aveva occupato una questura abbandonata e chi spaccia dicendo che è un problema di legalità allo stesso modo.
If we take the case that is exposed here on Porto Fluviale, we are doing our best to lead the project, and we can talk about a successful experience. We're trying to turn into a successful experience also the regeneration of MAM, which is actually a private land, and about Quarticciolo. We put ourselves in front of those who consider equal the squatting of an abandoned building, the questura, the main building of the area, and the crack dealers, by saying that these are two very different questions and not just a generic question of legality.
Abbiamo investito tantissimi fondi PNRR sul Corviale Tor Bella Monaca per dire una cosa, che l'inversione secondo me di tendenza per arrivare all'esempio di Vienna è superare quell'accordo tacito che ha rappresentato la strada maestra delle amministrazioni, della vita politica di Roma da troppo tempo, cioè in alcune parti della città l'amministrazione non c'è, quindi non dà diritti e non chiede rispetto dei diritti. Questa purtroppo è stata l'esperienza. Quando io vedevo il padiglione, scusami.
We have to come out by, if we want to reach the level of the experience presented here in the Vienna side of the pavilion, we have to free ourselves from the habit, long-term habit of not of not being present in big part of the city, and let speculation do. Not giving right and not asking for
rights.
Right. Giving right, not giving right and not asking for duties.
Quando ho visto le esperienze intensive del social housing a Vienna, molto simili a quelle di Corviale, e ho visto che lì come a Corviale c'erano i servizi comuni, il famoso quarto piano che doveva servire alla socialità, quindi in realtà forse il problema non era architettonico, ma era gestionale, come si gestisce una città e come si gestiscono i diritti e come si fanno rispettare i doveri.
So when I look at Vienna and the way now the public houses, just like Corviale, provide services, incredible services for the citizens, of course we have to consider that the question it's not about duties, but it's also about how do we give those rights.
Quindi quello che noi chiediamo è rispetto al cambiamento culturale, ovviamente essere criticati, essere in qualche modo anche criticati per le nostre mancanze, per le contraddizioni, ma una cosa è la critica intellettuale, una cosa è una critica pregiudiziale. Quindi vi chiediamo di aiutarci a migliorare ovviamente le nostre politiche, ma di non partire dall'assunto che chi governa per forza di cose governa per favorire gli interessi privati, la speculazione, o è subalterno a chi vorrebbe fare.
So before, so really now, Andy, I want to say, when we accept critics for our ambiguities, for our mistakes. We accept critics in any kind of critic, but not prejudiced. So we don't accept the prejudiced critic that we are in the hands of investors and speculators, and we don't want this to be the starting point. This is not what we are doing, not what we are looking for.
That's all. I'm sorry for the translation.
Thank you. Okay, now we can open up the floor to discussion. I think we provide an enormous amount of very diverse position and information on this single issue, but this single issue has one exemplary issue on those wide processes that take place in cities. So we open up the floor to discussion. I don't know if my colleague curators want to start up?
So first of all, thank you very much also to bring back voices of administration, activists, scientists, experts. And I think it's important also if we zoom, and it was important to zoom in, and then it's also important to zoom out. I mean, some of these topics become really notion as a model. That's what we tried to find here, was to create a dialectic space which are coming through experiences, and they're put on an extreme. So in a certain way, the narrative also of Rome, we are absolutely aware, is not the narrative of Rome, because you could make a story of morphology of Rome, etc. But it was important for us to give it as one of the biggest European housing right movements, and the fascination of the praxis which developed their voice to create an essence of some practices, strategies which have been developed. And I think that's absolutely important, and we are well aware that we live now in this transition moment where public administration, as you just said, steps in and recognizes some of these phenomena as absolutely valuable. And for us, from a Viennese part, obviously it's so interesting to understand how can we include these kind of experiments which give an answer to unsolved questionings. The questioning of an arrival city, of precarious moments, which is impossible obviously to solve automatically, because there are phenomena which we don't know yet what is happening. And the same goes also with the new ecological phenomena, that what we hear here, that we have an ecosystem which develops so fast and is an evidence of something which we didn't know it exists. Sorry, and to make a way of protecting on one side, but then, I mean, cities are made of conflicts, and that's the nature of a city, and it's just the way of our civilization, how we solve this kind of impossibility of conflict. And planning, by definition, is this kind of stupid, evil, or positive job to create a compromise of different voices. And I think that for us it's super interesting also to see. Therefore, we invite also the practitioners and of Vienna to see also the effort and how certain things can be done, but also maybe not everything reaches this kind of radicality, which a process which is non-dominated in a certain way and not put into fences can generate, but in the wish of not just resilience, but in the wish that you say we need permanence, and living and housing is about permanence, obviously, whereas economy is about dynamic as well, and it's a contradiction also in Vienna to put that into a house. And I think that there's something very important emerging, and I think for us it's not just a Roman or Viennese question, but this is a fundamental question how we deal in this moment of transition, where for the first time again ecology and the protection of environment becomes even a reason that you stop huge housing areas of development because you find one bird which has a specific place there. So there's a new conscience also arriving, and parallelly in this struggle of the new mine of economy, which is tourism, certain kind of phenomena, brings you a question. And I think we don't have any answers. We are just trying together to find this kind of logic. And I think it's also interesting that in the specific, because it's very easy in the abstract to give the solution for the world, and in the specificness you see the devil or the potential. It's really important that we go also into details to understand that we, although we all might wish the same, being on different part of this game or being in different position, you see the complexity. And I think the instrument which you were coming up, I think it's also interesting. The l'expropriation, how is it called? The expropriation of territory. So in terms of, because it brings back the key issue is who is owning the land and how much valuable is that land. And I think we can make a whole political discussion how prices of that are defined, but I think it's a very important one. And in the moment also, not just for nature, but also for housing. We are all agree that the state can take over when you have or could take over when we had a highway, which was of so supra-regional interest. And I think the question is now, how can we define something which is of supra neighborhood interest but also for city, and how can housing again becomes also something as a value system. We have seen forces of defense for the art, and it's easier to, as we have seen in the MAM, it's easier to protect a museum than to protect the life of living, and I think there is this kind of criticality in my opinion.
Let me go back to the question of some question it raises, because I think what's very important what has been said today, and this issue of how much value. I mean, of course, municipality cannot pay market price for all it's needed, and this is why we have to pay another price. And this is why the previous encounter we had here, Assembly Number 8, Valentina Cocco, and the Vienna municipality responsible for valuation of land said, you know, we don't pay market price. We don't make. If you want to have. We have another very dangerous tool in Rome, the missing profit. No, that's been also used. Has been also used in several cases. In Vienna, if there is no achieved planning transformation and no achieved project for the use of this building, there is no missing profit recognition. So we really have to protect the public and the citizens from this transform, because we need a shift, and the first shift, we cannot recognize this value, which is profit. I mean, everybody knows, I mean, as Michele was saying now, the cost of architecture, it's a fifth of the value product just that people receive. Now that the financiarization brought this issue very clearly, we cannot pay that. There is no right. It is not right, and there is no right to pay that. This is one thing. And then another question. Then I open up the floor, please, for your intervention. Another crucial question is, in the past, the struggle, as Michele said, brought the public to give an answer. But nowadays, we are, the image used in the morning, walking on a line. We are in ambiguous environment. We need to follow up the process that nature is driving to understand what to do. And so we need a continuous monitoring and cooperation in between civil society and public administration in the process also of managing. In one hand, we need the public now, we need the public response, especially on the value of land and the way of achieving the rights, but in the other, we need to create tools. Last assembly, we discussed with Valentina Cocco and with the inhabitants of Porto Fluviale that probably for the future it's too expensive to make those places public houses at this cost. But imagining process, and we had here a chief of a cooperative in Zurich promoting cooperative, self reconstruction and practices that could provide the help he was requiring from society. So we need to reduce the cost. There's a lot of possibility, and I think this is another two elements that I wanted to put back in the center of the discussion because animated the discussion here in the previous encounter.
Just a short answer to you, because you said something very interesting. You said that the private investor should not be the devil, or not named the devil. Yes and no. No, because I mean they are not always the devil. Even in Vienna, sometimes the projects by private investors are the more experimental ones, and there are sometimes things can be tried out with private investors that would be impossible with funded housing. But you have to be very selective, and there are just a few. I mean, there are even some sitting here today already who make the best projects, but again, you have to be really, really selective for that. And I would have an answer to you, also Sarah, because you have been researching so much about tourism and the effects of tourism. Is there not any kind of positive effect or a new coexistence between the Lago Baccante, for instance, and the new kind of tourism, like an agro tourism in urban agrotourism or whatever. Couldn't you use that in future maybe? I don't know exactly for what and what for and why, but wouldn't this be maybe a kind of a strategy?
Yes, please, Sarah, I want just to remind that we have 10 minutes more of attention of the assessor, so it would be very nice that Sarah and also Alessandra asked me to intervene, and Marco, that happens before we go. So.
Yes, no, just about tourism, I really think it's, tourism is not good or bad, it's neutral, it all depends on who is running the show. And so I think it would actually be very interesting to consider tourism as a public service. We should start looking at tourism as public infrastructure, public experiences that could be promoted and regulated by the public. That would be something, an interesting idea. I have two questions. In part, Lorenzo, you answered, because as a journalist, I'm very interested in writing about this. And so I think the issue of value is extremely relevant. And it is true, I mean, we in Italy, we have had these mainly two sentenze that have made expropriations impossible. And another one I won't get into now. So this is a crucial topic, I think. I think it would be interesting if there could be a public open debate about this. If there could be an open participated debate in the city of Rome, because we are hostage to private building rights, which have been dormienti for years, for 20 years, and nothing has been done. And so I think it's clear that we have to find new tools. It's clear that in times of climate change we have to change things, and of course the judicial level has always changed, also consequently to struggles, and so I think it should be something to consider. I mean, this should be like a political topic that we have to debate and discuss often, because we can't just give it for granted. I mean, we can't give for granted that you have all these building rights and so that's it. That is just not sustainable. This is something that I think should be, I would like to carry on researching and maybe interview people here about this. And also I was just on the journalistic point of view, so has this has the land been actually acquired by an Asarco, or is it still because I thought it was still a negotiation process, or is it complete, this passaggio? That's my question.
So the first question, I'm totally agree with you. I think that one of the main points to create a different kind of city, because we know that we cannot think that city could be survived without changing, and to change cities we need to debate and we need to change some statal rules, but I don't know if it's enough. Probably we need to change some European rules about exploitation, about, for example, the power of regulate old rights. You know, many journalists, many movements told us, but why you want to recognize old rights for building new, not the so-called compensazioni, but not not the environment compensation, but building compensation. But then we need to pay, because the Court of Justice told us, okay, if you don't give them the right of building, you have to pay them, and we need to pay millions of euros for this. So I think that it's important, if we want to change our cities, we need to change them for all what you said about climate change, about the consumption of soil, and so on. we need to have the instruments to do that. When I said policy cannot do anything, okay, policy can change all this. So we are not the enemy of that. We can be allies, okay? But we need to change this approach. And I think that, for example, many things were done with exploitation, with not a market price in the past. Okay, all the public services were done with general exploitation, so-called general exploitation. Si chiamavano espropri generalizzati for public interest. Now we have to pay the market value, and it's an important point. From SNIA, we know that Enasarco now talks to us because Enasarco has the rule of talking with us, but they didn't ended the ether, the way to buy all the companions. So now there are our point of contact. Okay, so we talk with them, but they don't have now in their hand the companion. So they are just dialoguing with the old property about the compendium, but they have they are delegated to talk to the administration.
Okay, before you going, we just would like to have another an intervention from Marco again.
No, non è possibile. So che l'assessore ci lascerà a breve.
So I know that the assessor will have to go in 5 minutes.
Sta a Roma? No, mica perché va in gondola, però dico eccoci, torna a Roma e quindi due cose. Uno, che mi sembra che insomma stiamo mettendo a fuoco tutta una serie di cose e abbiamo anche la possibilità del confronto con un'amministrazione appunto che ha reso possibile negli anni la città pubblica.
So I know this is going away. I just want to focus a couple of things. One is that we are really fixing up a series of crucial points to define the situation, and we are dealing with administration that is claiming to have a public interest.
E quindi su questo piano l'invito è quello di organizzare a Roma una seconda un secondo momento di confronto anche con l'Università La Sapienza.
So this, I would like to invite the public administration to organize a moment like this, maybe with the participation also of University La Sapienza.
Con l'obiettivo appunto di completare questa resa pubblica, cioè questa dimensione pubblica della SNIA.
Following the goal of opening up the public discussion over this values procedure and especially in SNIA.
E proprio nelle ore passate, comunque, visto che insomma si è parlato del ruolo della politica e quello che noi insomma come auto-organizzazione rappresentata qui nel padiglione abbiamo la capacità di determinare.
And if we look at the pavilion and the discussion we had, we are talking about the capability of represent and do things from the public side and from the self-organization side.
Con un lungo percorso di confronto con il quartiere abbiamo deciso di indire per il 19, per la domenica 19 ottobre, una giornata di festa e di lotta, così la chiamiamo noi.
So along with the path we're building with the neighborhood, so we decided to call for a day of party. It's the celebration of the lake, but also a day of struggle on the 19th of October at the lake.
Sì, nell'anniversario della liberazione del lago che combatte, perché era un lago già pubblico, ma insomma non accessibile, più di 10 anni fa, poco più di 10 anni fa, fu liberato proprio il 13 ottobre del 2013.
So this was when the invitation for the 19th, which also recalls the day then when 10 years ago the public space, but not accessible, was reappropriated by the people.
In questa giornata naturalmente quello che insomma noi siamo in grado di fare è quello di enunciare i nostri obiettivi che hanno sempre poi spinto, dove ci si è riusciti, hanno spinto le amministrazioni a rendere possibili porto fluviale, la riconversione del MAM e così via.
So in this one day we will be continuing claiming for our goals that are the goals that led the public administration to step forward with Porto Fluviale or MAM Metropolis.
È questo il nostro concetto, che la politica può determinare il futuro e noi lo facciamo con le nostre capacità e i rapporti di forza.
Because we believe politics can determine those processes and the future, and we do it by making count our positionings and force in this confrontation.
Logicamente, cioè è così, correttamente rispetto alla nostra visione ci opponiamo a un'idea di una città legata agli interessi privati, naturalmente, contro, diciamo, quella che chiamiamo la città dei padroni, per la città pubblica e per i bisogni di chi l'abita.
So we always been there opposing the city of landlords. So if there is a fight to do about that, we're glad that we can work together also with the public administration.
Non in maniera pregiudiziale, ma insomma in maniera preventiva e determinata.
So we have no prejudice, but we want to prevent the arguments, and this is why we are on ground struggling. But okay.
Siete tutti invitati.
Okay, thank you. You're all welcome. You're all welcome. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. I have to go. Bye. Thanks.
Move away from the sound. I was asked by Sabine to say something. I feel a little bit a stranger to the discussion, but I was reflecting that I have this feeling that there seems to be this very clear line between protection and development. And thinking back on our project and reflecting what happened is that I'm not sure it would be as good if it would have been just empty, everything, without any new development. So there's private development or there's capitalistic development, and perhaps that has to be fended off. But I think that all these areas also they need some change to make them more accessible for everybody, I think. And then the question is just, what is the right development? And perhaps it's just a few interventions, perhaps it's just a few openings, but it might be useless. And I have this feeling, if I think of the university as a public use, it seems like the perfect ingredient to develop an area like that. But that's where I perhaps know too little about what kind of development the university is imagining there, and if it's more like a closed campus or something that's open, and it might also interact very well with both the nature and the other uses of the neighborhood. So, but this is just from an outside perspective. It seems that putting it under a glass dome and say this is protected, and we just need forests around it. Perhaps we also need some buildings that mediate between the city and this area with the right uses, and of course with as an open frame, no, or perhaps just points. But this is just a reflection.
I know that Rem Koolhaas is not so much liked here, but I think it was Rem Koolhaas first who said that forests can be like buildings, so we can treat forests very similar to buildings somehow, and there could be maybe a clever combination of something building-like, but it can be a forest like a building maybe.
Yeah, I think what would be interesting is, from a Roman point, to look at Vienna and to see how an administration could become good. So in terms of, no, not in terms of good, in terms of how it works, but that people get confidence in it. I think not in terms of morality, but and performance, but in trust. And I think it's interesting because these were governments, like the Italian government, which show in the Second World War that they can become totalitarian. And I think it's interesting that within decades, city administration can create rules of confidence, of including investment in a clever way. So that I think the interesting part was in one of the last discussions also, what we had with Amila Sivekovic from the city of Vienna. It's also about this kind of third sector that is not just the capital driven, but you can also create a huge system which has a huge investment in the common good. And I think that's a target which we should achieve. If not, we are oscillating between two poles, which we never have a solution because these poles are by opposition. And I think already now that we have also through this kind of assemblies always different exponents of politics and meeting exponents of another expertise, it's already a fantastic starting point in this kind of decision. And I think that what you also showed is this fragile equilibrium, how something can die if you overexpose it, but something can also flourish in a very, very, very interesting way. And I think it would be, I mean, the hot topic of our generations, and I speak here in plural because I don't like to look at society through one generation, and I think it's an effort of young and old, and it's really how can we combine these two major issues. One is also how can tourism becomes an alliance, and I think in a certain way, if you look at the Vienna system, it was based on taxes, very simple. So, and also the question is, who do you tax? Do you tax the subject which is using a platform, or do you tax the platform itself? And I think it's a fundamental question. And it's also a lie of a whole generation which can hear constantly that with a job like writing text, making pictures, making music, you don't earn anything, where paradoxically all the platforms which are earning an enormous amount of money makes it via text, via photos, via music. So there is a crucial moment of asking those where you have an unbelievable exponential growth based exactly on that. How can we put that in? How can we localize it? And strangely enough, big data is a moment where you exactly would know where something has been exploited, and you could exactly put it back. And it's very similar to that how cooperatives normally work in a justice system. If you have a housing block of a cooperative, it looks exactly ai centesimi. How much room do you have? How is it valued? How is the view better recognized? Is it more expensive? So we have also from the other part, in a tentative of making a common ground, a lot of interregulation and system, and also therefore we try to show an intelligence, as in Rome, which has a knowledge which is not always visible, because mapping also means showing it to some powers which could extract you. But I think I found this a really interesting moment where our discussion should be really evolved. Who is making exponentially too much money on certain things? You cannot say parallelly people, I mean, this is the paradox, you cannot say parallelly to people take care of your rental system privately, and all people have to invest, maybe since decades, their money in a company which makes money by investing in housing market, and paradoxically is the same company which pushes you out of the house, the ones which you chose to help you to have enough money. So I think we are living in paradox system, and therefore I think it's absolutely crucial to find third ways of seeing allies where you don't see them right now. And I think it has to do with rules, with taxes, with asking if tourism could, certain kind of tourism could become something. And you know it all historically, that the Podemos, which went on the street in Spain in a system where nobody had any money, it was clear that the youth, and you have 30% of, how is it called, of a youth which has no job, it is obvious that some of them are renting out their spaces to get the minimum amount of money. So the same ones which were on the street were also the ones which were having the support system of Airbnb for a minimum of money. So the paradox of a society where you don't have jobs is also that. And therefore, how can we turn that money, which is floating to Rome, into something positive? And I think not based on exploitation. And the same goes, how can ecology coexist with the national need of growth and also, and the need also of space? And I think these are the important questions to deal with.
I think the question is so big, and the issue is so big, that it would be so nice to make a kind of a huge research project out of it, where both cities are involved, and somehow research and the activists and everybody and research about that question. Maybe we can work on that.
Definitely we can work on that. I think if there is no other intervention, I think we should work. We also have one more chance. I mean, we have 2 assemblies and we have a last one that somehow should try to put together all the pieces that we are doing. I don't know if there is any more intervention on the go. It's someone else that would like to intervene? Please.
Every time we thanks for this opportunity to be here in the space of negotiation, and we would like to keep on this discussion, to come to Vienna, and you come to Rome, to keep on this discussion. I guess it's very important for both cities, for institution, but also researcher and activists. So we invite you in Rome to come to Rome. And then actually, if you want really to come next, the 19th of October will be a big celebration at the lake. It could be also a moment of meeting you. But it's just in a week. But
okay, we have also a meeting in Rome. I think it's good that we do this exchange, and we not only do with institutions, as Julia said, but also with movements. That would be very intriguing and professional, so that we really breathe from all perspectives the 2 different air, no? That we can have in the 2 cities. Some last
then for sure we have the last assembly, when the idea is to write a manifesto out of all these assemblies. So you all invited to take part to this manifesto.
We can try. I hope we can make it. I think we have a lot of elements that we put it together through all those assemblies. So just we need also a little bit of recalling all this and bring it to a public discussion. Of course, you're all invited to come next time. Alessandra.
Thanks to Antonietta for taking video every time. So we have also an archive of our meeting.
We were laughing before with Philip, and we imagine a future Biennale mixing the 2, Vienna and Rome, the governance capacity of Vienna and the vitality of Rome in a unique pavilion.
Yeah, definitely also Biennale has something, a richer level that needs also to confront with a change that is not taking place. And I think we did a big effort for us, but a little contribution in this sense by hosting into the National Pavilion this exchange. So I think this is also very important. And I think we got so much today. I don't know if someone else wants to say. I'm a little bit exhausted by this work of translation.
A short comment.
Well, please.
I have no idea what goes on.
Please introduce yourself. That's important in that case.
Sorry?
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Robert Hahn. I work in Vienna. I am a developer.
A very good developer.
You have to decide for yourself.
No video.
I have no idea what goes on in Rome, but I do live and work in Vienna, and I can tell you it's not paradise. It's a place where you have to know your way around. You have to know who you work with. but you can do good projects. And I think in the end, it's the power of the project which will make the decisions. If it's good, and that's a very difficult definition to make, you need alliances, you need to take risks, you need to deal with obligations, and you need luck, lots of luck, then it works out. And then everyone has an advantage. Everyone can take something away from that, but you need to get the others participate in the project. And it's a group effort. You need the authorities, you need the inhabitants, you need everyone involved, at least on some level. But it can be done, and it can be done responsibly and economically viably. It's difficult, but it can be done.
Yes, maybe we can send our landlords. I want to make a question, just to, since you present yourself. I mean, I cannot estimate exactly, but developers in Rome make so much more money out of land than not out of projects and construction. Is
Speculation.
Speculation.
Yeah, but that also happens in Vienna. I mean,
Vienna's not a paradise. It happens a lot there too.
Yeah, but in Rome it's so much evident that they really care less, that they can even abandon the project. They can even, I mean, things works anyway from the speculative aspect. This is so strong in Vienna, because in Rome it's incredible. I don't think anywhere else in the world. Yeah.
There were some very major bankruptcy cases in the last 2 years. Very, very large developers who were very greedy, and they had track records which just increased their ability to take on more and more debt, and the taxpayer will probably pay their debts for a long time. So it's not uncommon. So many developers, very large developers, have gone bankrupt in the past year and a half, 2 years, something like that. But on that note, they usually don't have good projects.
yes.
They're speculating.
So definitely we also need very good projects, and we can make very good projects, and we need to be together to do that, because no public administration, no professionals, no citizens can alone reach the goal of that. I mean, I think this is a good perspective, common perspective. Thank you, thank you, thank you everybody.